Percent Podcast.
Hey everybody, before we begin today's special interview with ARK Gallery, I just wanted to introduce November's sponsor of the show, Async Art, the new blockchain art movement where people can create, collect, and trade programmable art. If you don't know, programmable artwork is made up of different layers that can evolve over time, reacting to its owners or even external factors like stock prices and the weather. And Async has a pretty big November coming up. On November 6th, you can check out a layer change on Micah Johnson's artwork, Sovereignty, that'll celebrate Bitcoin birthday for one of the children pictured in the art. The change will reveal a wallet QR code and address that will accept Bitcoin donations to help fund the child's future. On November 15th, look out for a crazy big drop featuring Trevor Jones and a lot of money of a work titled ETH Boy. The date could change, so make sure you stay tuned for future updates. And for all the updates and for everything else, make sure you go to async.art. That's ASYNC.art to check out all the things about async art. And now let's get into today's show. Okay, we're live. This is Matthew, and I'm back for another special interview on the Matthew and Rizzle show with my dude Rizzle. Today, we're really excited to be able to get the opportunity to speak with Robi from ARK Gallery. For folks in NFT land and in crypto, you've probably seen what they've been doing with wrapped punks. Also really excited to talk about Robi's past as a art gallerist, digital art dealer, and all these other crazy things that somehow I feel are super really relevant for what ARK Gallery is experimenting with today. So without further ado, really excited to welcome Robi to the show. Welcome, Robi.
Hi, Matt. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you for having me here.
It's our pleasure. Well, for the folks listening, I think it'd be really cool if we could get started just by you telling us a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Italian, and I've been living in the past 20 years in Asia. And in the past, I've been mostly involved with the contemporary art scene in Asia, mostly in China. I founded a gallery in Shanghai, and I was dealing with emerging contemporary artists and a lot of digital artists. So one of the main reasons why now I am in the blockchain space is because I was familiar with the market of digital things, like digital assets. So when I discovered a little bit more than a year ago NFTs, I really was super interested in them. I started studying and researching, and 1 year ago I went full on. We opened this kind of startup.
I'm truly interested in whether your previous art experience is relevant to anything you're doing today, or if you've just totally left that behind at this point, or you know what I mean? Do those skills translate at all?
Well, no. In some way, I was. I've always been I've always been interested in experimental things, and my involvement with Chinese art at the beginning was part of that, because I would say that 15 years ago, doing contemporary art in China was really experimental, and then it kind of started to become mainstream, and doing digital art in China 5-6 years ago was experimental, and now it's sort of, I cannot say that it become mainstream, but it will be surprising to know how many collectors are involved in collecting digital assets. And I'm talking about things outside of the blockchain. So as a gallerist in China, I started to have a lot of clients that will basically buy digital files. So we will make shows in the galleries, and the artists will create videos mostly, or installations that somehow include the digital files. And we will eventually have to sell them. And sometimes, being the artist already quite established, sell them for relevant prices. So how do you sell a digital file? How do you sell something that is on a hard disk? And basically it gets from the computer of the artist, arrives into the computer, into the machines of your gallery. So all the employees have a copy Sometimes even the workers have a copy because they have to install the work in the hall, in the exhibition hall. So they need to have the copies of the file in the USB sticks and stuff like that. So eventually, when everybody has a copy of the file, how do you price it? How do you guarantee scarcity? Because eventually, when you sell these files, you need to state an edition number. And usually in the art world, it's like edition of 5 or edition of 8. It's rarely a unique edition when it's about digital files. So it was really a revelation knowing that with blockchain technology and with NFTs, you could do that like with a click, basically. Like everything will be done by the blockchain, basically.
Were you selling like digital files prior to discovering NFTs? Like, were people accepting of just like you were saying, like buying a file on a USB stick if it was from a famous artist, or was it more like NFTs unlocked your ability to do that, or how did that come together?
No. I'm talking about pre-blockchain. I've been selling digital files even before 2009, so even before blockchain existed.
So you would just price them as editions or something as well, or?
So the artist declared to you as a gallerist, I mean, the artist declares the edition number, and then you have to trust the artist, of course. And then you as a dealer, you will basically report what the artists say, and the collectors have to trust you. Then eventually, when you kind of start to get more familiar, you have to sort of structure the things legally. So we came up with contracts, paper contracts that will be signed by the artist, of course, by us, and then eventually signed with the collectors. Yeah, for us, a game changer was when one of our collectors, who was also a lawyer, a good lawyer, he collected a video work, and then he offered us to review our contract, which then became our standards. But all this was basically happening before NFTs were a thing.
And like, how much money are we talking when people are scooping up some of these digital files and digital art back then?
Yeah, usually in the gallery system, like the entry price for very young artists can go from few hundred, maybe like few $100, close to $1,000 for a really like totally unknown artists. Up to, I don't know, in our cases, we have sold really important artworks, important for us, let's be clear, because there can be much more expensive artworks. So we have sold for $60,000, $70,000 US dollars for one video work. But they are established artists, and the buyers in most of these cases are institutions or even museums. And with them, of course, it's not just the USB key. You need to respect some requirements, which they do not really have a standard. So imagine that there are some museums that require several formats, and they do understand a little bit more the technology and how the medium, the conservation of digital file and stuff. But there are other foundations and museums which are very important, and they really will be fine with a CD-ROM. I mean, if you give them a CD-ROM, they will be, okay. So there is not a standard.
So do you do a lot of like education or like hand-holding with the people from your former job as a in the art world and everything, or have you basically totally moved forward with your angle on digital ownership and left that behind you?
No, I'm actually talking. I'm starting to talk now to some, let's say, important collectors, important institutions who are completely like, how to say, they are super interested in what is happening. They understand it, although, at the beginning, when you explain blockchain and NFTs to people that never heard about it, it could be confusing, people that do not really understand what is a Bitcoin and what is a smart contract. For all of them, it's just one thing. Struggle.
So I wanted to ask a question about the collectors of the traditional, quote unquote, traditional digital art. When they're collecting a file or a USB or a hard drive, like what's their expectation as a collector? Like, do they just want to collect this, and do they want to hold it for personal consumption, and they want to be the only people to be able to view this digital art? Or what's behind that purchase in the collector's mind?
It's absolutely a pure spirit of collecting as a way to signal like the status within a community, which in this case is a collectors and artist community. And of course, I think that the main reason is supporting the artists and the gallerists as well, because it's just an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of friends, people that know each other, and that's the way it works. It is really a non-zero sum game, a positive sum game, where people do not expect anything back.
So, dude, it sounds like you've been way ahead of the curve in your career, almost no matter where you've been, and somehow you were ahead on digital art. And then I feel like anyone in the game now who understands the brilliance behind the concept of NFTs is ahead of the game now. And now you're on like what I feel like is even ahead of the NFT game, because you're like rapping punks and doing all of these like very interesting things. Do you mind talking a little bit about how one thing led to another and how you got into that?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, when the first time I heard about NFTs, which was exactly in 2017 when there was the CryptoKitties spike and everybody was talking about Ethereum and CryptoKitties in particular, I understood immediately. Like I was curious about what was happening, and it took me a while to understand what was blockchain and what was Bitcoin. And I remember after like a week of reading, I understood pretty much the basics, and then I immediately understood that NFTs basically would be a game changer for the art industry, because everything we were doing back then using contracts and trust, it could happen just with a scalable solution. I don't know. It wasn't intuition, but basically seeing people buying kitties, and then eventually I understood about the punks. I knew about the punks and Rare Pepe. For me, it was pretty clear, right? I mean, if you have digital communities that exchange value and build consensus so easily within that space, just because there is a trigger, which is the trigger behind every artistic statement. I mean, if like for the CryptoKitties, if there is an audience that believes that the CryptoKitties are valuable and are artistic, they are cool, then there is a market immediately happening. And for me, these things were really, revealing. They were a confirmation of how the NFT market somehow could be a real thing. So I started 1 year ago getting into this thing for real. I had to find some sort of a CTO, which I did, and we started experimenting mostly with things that were not in the space. So there we came up with the idea of ARK Gallery, which is this experiment in community ownership. Something that you don't want to mix together with fractional ownership, because it's really different. So my idea of community ownership is that in NFTs, ownership is really a signal. So like if we go to super rare or Rarible, ownership is signaled by having your avatar next to the NFT that you are, the piece of art that you want to buy, and next to the avatar of the creator. So that's just like a piece of real estate collecting. Like if you can place your avatar there, it's like placing your identity, your digital identity there. And it doesn't have to be your name. It has to be your real digital identity. So Rizzle, for example, I'm sure that you have an avatar that you use in all the community,
yep,
right?
All
and
the
you
way
use
across
all
the
same,
board,
right?
You're exactly right.
You never change it. Exactly. So that's exactly stating your digital identity, right? It is really like a passport somehow. where you say, this is me, and that's what I own. In some way, this works exactly like in the art world, like in collecting. People want to say the real, like for example, in the physical art world, collectors want to mostly use their real names and have their photos. But what's the difference between that and avatars and nicknames? So, given that is a piece of real estate next to, I'm just exaggerating here, but it's just this signal. It comes with having your avatar, the privilege of having your avatar next to the creator and the piece of art. So why not having multiple avatars next to the creator and the piece of art? It's really like sort of amplifying the pleasure, in my opinion, or sharing the journey in some other cases. That was the assumption behind our gallery. And we came up with this first prototype on CryptoPunks, which was okay. I think that it worked in some way and it didn't in some other, because it was really my first experiment in launching anything that was like a website. So after that, we came up with we realized that nobody had wrapped the punks, and we just did it. And I don't think we should have too much credit for that. So and it was really a lot of fun being part of this. I feel that we were super lucky with arriving at the right moment, with the right, like facing the right problem that the punks were not wrapped yet, and a lot of other elements helped as well. And that was it. And after that, we just came up with after we wrapped the punk, so we made them ERC-721. We did this other experiment called bounties, NFT bounties, which we just launched actually yesterday as a standalone decentralized application. And I hope that it's working well. In 24 hours, it has reached up like 16 or 17 Ethers of liquidity, which is not bad for a beginning. But the version 1 of the bounties at wrappedpunks.com already had a lot of movements. Actually, there were like how many? 38 bounties, 38 deals closed, and for a total, I think last time I counted, is more than $50,000, which is not bad, considering we are targeting only the CryptoPunks at the moment.
So for NFT bounties, does it work like someone wants, for example, a CryptoPunk or whatever, and they have like 5 ETH to spend, so they just put out the 5 ETH saying that if someone has a CryptoPunk, any CryptoPunk, or maybe they specify like a specific trait, like an alien or something like that, they attach that and they put that bounty out there, and then someone with the corresponding CryptoPunk, they can kind of match their punk to the open bounty. Is that how it works, or?
Yeah, the way it works is exactly like that. It's just a blind bid. So if you want to, let's say that you want to buy a CryptoPunk and you have no idea, no clue which one you want to buy, you just place a blind bid on any one of the 10,000 punks, mm-hmm. and anyone who owns it can just accept it. It's as simple as that. And actually, I think that the thing of the trade came after we had this idea, because whenever there is an NFT collection that has an ARK up and that there is a built consensus on its value, I think it should welcome the bounties in some way, because the bounties, a mechanism like the bounties, signals that there are people willing to spend money like blindly. Let's say that I accept anything. I'm not afraid that I end up being punked in the case. And that comes to the cost of production of the NFT. Of course, there are some collections where the cost of producing, like, I don't know, any artist smart contract probably will be a great case for curation. I mean, if you have bounties on the address of an artist, then you know that that artist is really wanted. Like the secondary market of that artist is really strong. Whereas an artist that maybe doesn't have a reputation and a solid secondary market yet probably wouldn't have bounties, because everybody would be afraid that, I just put a low ball and then I end up with an NFT. Just like it works in the artwork. We came up with this idea, kind of mimicking the way that the secondary market works, because there are some secondary market dealers in the art world that just work on that. I want to get I want to get a Picasso, but just get me one. Get me the cheapest one. And then, okay, so do you want an oil painting or do you want a drawing? What's less expensive? A drawing. Okay, then get me a drawing. In many cases, the deal works like that. I'm not saying that the NFTs world will replicate the art world, but somehow the crave for collecting artworks will probably, in some ways.
No, I believe that, man. That's like the mantra of many like premium brands in general, that like, even if a lot of their stuff is priced very, very high, there are going to be people who want to own something of theirs just to say that they own something, much like the example you gave. So they'll just take the cheapest thing or the least expensive thing out there just to be able to say that they, own a Picasso, or, try to maybe flip it on the bottom rung or something like that. So no, dude, I mean, that makes sense. And I feel like has been like a marketing thing for a very long time across the board for, all types of brands and things. Dude, if this goes well, I mean, you seem like you're, like I said before, like ahead of the curve constantly. And assuming this goes well, which it seems like it's going to, is this a concept that you're going to try and replicate in another capacity? Or is this like step one in your master plan of like some other thing you're going to be moving on to with the success of this? Or, where do things go from here if this works out well?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, let me explain you how we came up with this NFT bounties as a kind of a protocol. We right now these bounties are single bids. So individuals that are bidding on let's say the CryptoPunks, right? So there are 10 collectors that are bidding, each one with their bids, and all these bids add up together to a sum, which is the total liquidity of that like targeting that collection. So we came up with this idea that all these bids could be like bundled into a single pool, where no matter who is the highest bidder or who is the lowest bidder and who gets to be accepted, so that basically whenever a bounty is accepted, who placed the bids gets the NFTs. All like there is a small commission charge to the NFT owner. So let's say that, if the highest bid is 5 ETH, instead of getting 5 ETH, the NFT owner gets 5 ETH less commission, and this commission gets redistributed to all those users that are providing liquidity. So it is really like a liquidity provision protocol to NFTs collections. I mean, this is the way it's working now in NFTbounties.com. We kind of were inspired, of course, by this great project, Uniswap. So in some way, we see the bounty hunters, let's call them bounty hunters. We see them as liquidity providers. And I feel that even those who are low bidding, like they are underbidding, they are providing a service to the community, because they are giving strength and trust and consensus on the value of that project. So that's how I envision this NFT bounties. If it happens, I don't know.
That's super interesting. So anyone that adds a bid, like anyone who has an open active bid within, like, for example, the CryptoPunk market, if any of the bids is fulfilled, then whatever commission that comes from that accepted bid will be distributed I'm guessing like pro rata.
Pro rata, exactly. So, we had this idea because the bounties version 1 on the CryptoPunks, they didn't have this. And we saw a lot of people placing bids and leaving the ETH there without any ink. I mean, it's really sad when you see it locked in a smart contract and nothing happened, especially after the DeFi season. So you feel like you almost have to give something. And a lot of DeFi projects, they just create tokens and they give reward in proprietary tokens. So we thought, no, this is like, you should, in this protocol, you can get ETH, and the ETH come from the people that actually use this protocol. So somehow see this as a collector / project creator protocol. Because if I launch an NFT project, I wish the community will post bounties on my projects. That's the way I see it.
What's to prevent like bounty snipers, for example, like a nonsense bid? So, right. So
you mean like the low balls,
exactly.
The so-called low balls. Yeah,
exactly. And one person adding so many low ball bids would, on a pro rata basis, potentially earn a lot more of the yield.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we want to, this is exactly the only way, like the only thing that we have to kind of fix. But in this moment, we do not touch it. So we think that the only way that it can work is that basically there is a threshold above which you just don't get the reward. But who choose for that? And at this point, it doesn't make sense that we have to have this headache. So if in the future we observe this behavior, we can with the smart contract we can fix it. Probably if this happens, is a happy problem, because it means that people are actually using. When people start to try to game your thing, that means that it's successful.
Okay. And then I want to go back to the kind of mission that you touched on earlier with ARK Gallery and community ownership, right? And you had mentioned like an example of community ownership being like multiple avatars next to the creator avatar on a marketplace like Rarible or OpenSea. And I'm just curious, what experiments are you like formulating that could actually achieve that community ownership? Or do you think that like NFT bounties and the wrap CryptoPunks is kind of paving the way towards that mission of community ownership? Because I think it's a really interesting concept, and you juxtaposed it with fractionalized ownership and clarified it as being something different. I'm just curious if you could unpack that and your plans to help, I guess, spur on that community ownership idea.
Well, we are working on a prototype or something new. Probably we'll launch it before December. So we will experiment with that. So of course, it's a community ownership makes sense only in the blockchain space when it's about to DAO, because as it involves more users, you want to have these users sort of in some way using the privilege that they have of owning something together. And in that sense, we are experimenting this. We are exploring the possibilities with a couple of the possibilities of this mechanism with a couple of artists, and then we will see what happens. I mean, I might be wrong. I think that for sure, fractional ownership in the way that is working now for example, in the shards, it is definitely a use case. People like it and people use it, and it's a great application of smart contracts and blockchain and programmable art in some way. I'm more interested into the opposite direction of just keeping the thing as a unit and trying to see how the collectors can coordinate around the very concept of collecting things together or being part of something which is in some way being part of the artwork somehow. Probably all these things sound very abstract. They will come out more clear when we publish our next prototype.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what sort of innovation you have, because almost in my mind, I had thought about like fractionalized ownership as sort of being that like a community ownership. I had like in my mind had that sort of association, and it creates almost like an Insta DAO or a mini DAO around a particular piece. So yeah, I mean, I was just really curious to hear more examples about the community ownership thing, because I feel like community ownership as a meme sounds really great. It's much better than, for example, like sharded ownership, which sounds like something totally different, or even fractionalized ownership, which sounds like something almost scammy. Community ownership has a better ring.
Well, for example, you know that there are a couple of projects which are very early projects in the blockchain space that do introduce fractional ownership for physical assets. This was something that I think happened already in 2017. There was a project in Singapore and one in New York. I think it's a very different use case from community ownership, because with community ownership, it's not about investing in something. It's just about really coordination. So what is this coordination? I feel that somehow it really depends by the artwork that you are targeting. Somehow the CryptoPunks, for example, I mean, there are these NFTs. In our gallery, you have these mini DAOs of people that you collect one CryptoPunk, then they can resell it or they can keep it, and that's as simple as that. But what if we involve the creator in this process, in this flow, and then the creator expose new vectors or new surfaces for what the DAO can do? So this is maybe community ownership in this case becomes more interesting. I want to remark that I will never remove the investment part from the whole thing, because it's always a fundamental. I mean, it's a founding part of collecting. Collecting is an investment. It takes money to collect art, so it is definitely an investment. But what I want to say is that like art, unlike other markets, it's more into the investing and having like a sort of entertainment. I mean, it's like a little bit like the Hollywood versus the Wall Street. In Wall Street, whenever you put 1 penny, you expect to have back 2 pennies or more. In Hollywood, you pay the ticket and you expect to have something back, which is more abstract. Like it can be entertainment or just fun or knowledge or whatever. So I think in the art is really the same, right? Otherwise, you just don't buy art; you invest in the market.
No, dude, that makes sense to me. In your opinion, like of everything you've got going on right now, what's like the most exciting aspect or application to you right now? Like what's the thing that is keeping you going or most exciting about your experiment?
I'm really interested in curation. So actually, eventually, my projects, which will be ARK Gallery, probably we will change name to it, because ARK Gallery was really the beginning. It's all about curation, which is the thing that I know better, and that I'm most interested in. So this really interests me. Observing what is happening in the current marketplaces, which are amazing. They are doing an amazing job in creating a new market. I think I'm talking about Super Rare and then Rarible, of course, OpenSea as well. I am super passionate observing how these marketplaces are setting standards for this new market, and I'm interested in understanding how. In the future, wider audiences with very specific niche or tastes can find their way to navigate through this huge amount of data, right? So this is what interests me the most.
Dude, that's awesome. And one of the things we always like to ask people as we're getting ready to close the show is just sort of interested in what sort of projects and collectibles and things that you're interested in that are outside of what you're doing professionally now. Like what kind of like collections or things in the crypto world do you like to tinker around with just on your own free time?
Well, recently I'm playing with CryptoVoxel. I think it's a great project. There is a great energy in the whole thing. I don't know. There is a real special vibe in that project. I didn't know it so well, but recently, actually also thanks to Matt, we had a conversation about it. And then in the past 2 weeks, I've been digging into it. I think it's a great project. And Avastar, yeah, I was discovering Avastar as well in the past 2 weeks. It's a great project as well.
Awesome. Preaching to the choir with that one. 2 home runs.
Yeah. So actually, I would love to know more about but about your project, Rizzle. I saw that you guys have helped Matt on creating this Meetup, right?
Yeah, we very much are in collaboration together with the WIP Meetup, and NFT 42 is the parent company of Avastars and Infinity, which is an on-chain minting platform, and the Token Smart community, and amongst other things, including the Meta Olympics coming up. So but a lot of it is the on-chain mantra that is, I feel like, what gives Avastars its stickiness. And same thing with Punks, right? I mean, they're like the OG, like on-chain project that we at Avastars are trying to position ourselves as the second coming OG on-chain project to a lot of success so far, man. So it's awesome that you guys have stumbled upon our project and sniffed us out, because we're in it for the long haul.
Avastar is really great. I hope that we find a time if you can tell me more and explain me how to play with them, because they're really I would like to understand if you guys have an artist in your team, or like the visual is so beautiful.
Yeah, the whole first generation was actually Marmota and Milky are the names of the artists. They did the entire first generation. Generation 2 will be entirely different, I believe, done by Josie, who's a famous crypto artist in her own right. But dude, feel free to sync up with me after the podcast here, man. I'd love to answer all your questions and discuss it more with you. So that would be awesome.
Yeah, and Avastars is just getting started. They have so many things cooking up in the kitchen that really align with a lot of the points that you made earlier on about what you're interested in, especially when it comes to like digital identity.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's how I saw them. They are like clearly the perfect avatar, right?
Just trying to knock down a couple more doors, man, but we got them just about being able to be used everywhere now. And the identity thing is absolutely becoming a thing, much in like you mentioned earlier in the conversation, where my name's not everywhere, but my avatar is, and people just sort of recognize me by my face now, like my virtual face or whatever. So that was the goal until we released the 3D avatars that you can actually use as your 3D virtual identity cross platforms, and so that's on tap for Generation 2.
Oh, all right, I see. And is it going to be possible one day for people to kind of customize their own avatar? Because right now the avatar is just about generative art, right? It's all generated by the platform.
Well, soon the replicant token is going to be airdropped on everybody who's currently holding Avastars and anyone who purchases one moving forward. So you will be able to customize them in some respects by like selectively breeding the ones in a very similar way to CryptoKitties to try and produce the effects that you want. But we're actually in conversation with a lot of different companies who want to do some sort of customization spin-offs and incorporate our Avastars into their own projects, which will involve sort of like a second layer of customization. If you import them into someone's game, then there's a layer of customization you can do once you get them into the game. So all of a sudden, the number of applications for them seems to be exploding, especially within the blockchain gaming, in virtual world areas and everything. So yeah, man, a lot of stuff on tap, and like I said, we'd love to talk more with you about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. How many years have you guys been in the blockchain space?
Well, NFT 42 has been in it for, I would say, pushing 3 years right now. I just joined with them last year. I've personally been in it since about 2012, 2013 or so, but I'm sort of like you, man. I got into the NFT game a little bit late and really like blew my mind and have never looked back since. I'm a little bit after the CryptoKitties fad. So I entered NFT world probably around mid 2018 or so. But blew my mind, man, and never looked back once I came in. So we got some common ground there.
Yeah, nice to hear.
But definitely really, really cool conversation to start. I wanted to thank you for your time today speaking with us about what you're doing at ARK Gallery with Wrap CryptoPunks, NFT bounties, and digging into what community ownership could look like heading into the future. So thank you very much for your time and keep on building.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thanks so much, man. That was great.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. Once again, I just want to shout out November's sponsor of the show, Async Art. Everyone should go to async.art to check out all the updates for November. Look out for the layer change on Micah Johnson's sovereignty work scheduled for November 6th. And then also make sure you look out for the November 15th drop of ETH Boy, created by A Lot of Money and Trevor Jones. So thank you again. And don't forget async.art. That's ASYNC.art. See you next episode.
Send podcast. Rizzle. Send podcast. Send podcast. Rizzle. Send podcast.